In early May 2012, I was given a second waking dream about the major earth changes for the planet. Remember, the waking dream is the most important dream we can have. It's usually quite literal just before we wake, and upon waking we're supposed to apply that information in our life in some way. In this dream, I was in a 2-story white house, or house with white siding, that I did not recognize. But it was very real, very tangible. I was on the 2nd floor, and there was light coming through a window. But I recall the house was not furnished or very empty. But I was working on something or writing down something, and outside in the afternoon sky, I could see through the window the blue sky. All of a sudden, overhead, it became completely black sky outside that window. I looked up from whatever I was writing or working from and realized that it was night sky. I looked toward the window and saw stars and all the things we would see at night. It was just night sky. There was no sun. I looked at the clock and it was 3:32 p.m. in the afternoon. And inside I said to myself, uh-oh. I left the home and apparently went to a Home Depot or a Lowe's, and I knew that I was gathering last-minute things that I would need. And in the store, even though it was sparsely, attended, there were a few people there that were buying things. They were all quiet. No one spoke because everyone knew that it was night sky in the afternoon overhead, and it should not be in the afternoon. I went back to the house, and the location of the house I noticed was in a remote area. The grass was brown, and it was long, like it had been not been mowed before, and it was as if the snow had just melted away, or it had been rained on hard because it was flattened against the ground. And around that house, I remember it had a cinder block or concrete block basement that was partially exposed at one portion of the house. Going back to the house, I remember calmly gathering a couple of suitcases and pulling them behind me as I went down in front of the house to the road to a place that I knew was already prepared for, or the preparation had been done for safety, a safe dwelling during this time. Through my research, after more than 40 years of research on the major earth changes, and as a hard and fast skeptic all this time, even though a professional psychic, metaphysician, all these many, many years, I have done over 50,000 plus readings for clients all over the world, celebrities, doctors, lawyers. They stay clients for years because of the level of accuracy and credibility. But I had done my own research back in the 70s regarding these earth changes, and I was going to dismiss them. However, after 5 years of deep, meticulous research, scientifically and metaphysically, spiritually, I found 3 credible sources, and for the last 40 years have followed those details as to the earth changes, not a date. Now, the December 21st date, 2012, points to a sequence of events that the ancient, not the contemporary or current Mayans, the ancient Mayans wanted us to be aware of because they were aware of a natural pattern on the earth, especially the one every 3,600 years where there's a natural cataclysm. Well, as I go back to this waking dream, I recognize as I'm pulling the luggage down the road to that location that was safe and prepared ahead of time, the dream faded. But I knew years ago that this earth change or polar shift or axis shift always happens, or is stated to happen. It states in our Bibles in a twinkling of an eye. So I knew by my research scientifically as well, metaphysically as well, that it was to happen in a matter of hours, that change, where she will shift on her axis as she does every 26,000 years. And every 100 to 125,000 years, her North Pole is absolutely different from or opposite from her South Pole in a different location. And we can find scientific data regarding that as well. So this is not to scare people. This is to prepare people. Would you rather be out in the freezing rain on the driveway, calmly standing there in the horrible freezing temperatures, or would you rather come inside and be warm in a safe location, meditate there for the benefit of all in the world going through these changes? Ultimately, you have your own free will choices to make. But I know through all my years that this kind of guidance, especially with the first video that showed me the axis change and the North Pole change and South Pole and the Cape Town being frozen over, I know this to be solid and real data, that I've been receiving this kind of material for the lives of others for many, many, many years, as well as for earth changes. My clients were coming to me in the early the mid to late 1990s, 96 to 98, because they were worried about the Y2K issue. And I said not to be disturbed, and I was told by the guides we would all start to see major earth changes in January 2005. So everybody must remember or can look it up to see what happened just 5 days before, December 26, 2004. We had Sumatra, the tsunami at Sumatra that killed over 250,000 people that day and harmed the lives of 800,000 others on coastal areas that were hit by the tsunami and moved the entire island of Sumatra 1 mile just from that one event. So that was prior to I was telling clients to be calm. And I watched these earth changes being in tune myself, apparently, with the earth. Within 24 to 48 hours, I will be sitting and lose a moment of equilibrium as if I was falling off of a chair when the earth is going to have a major earthquake of some magnitude. And this has been proven before. Now, this is interesting because May 20th, I was giving a workshop in Mount Shasta. 2012, May 20th, was the Grand Pleiadian eclipse, which had not appeared for 26,000 years. It was only visible at Mount Shasta, as well as Japan, and the Aleutians, in between the Aleutians and Russia, actually, which is ironic because that is exactly the previous dream about the Earth's actual new equator that I was given 2 years before, July 2010. Now, this is important for everyone to understand. During that workshop, I was telling people about the effects of in the world about this eclipse and how important it was and all the preparation that was necessary for the Earth changes. Now, during that weekend at Mount Shasta, I was guided to pull out my cell phone and aim it at the sun during the eclipse time. 200 of us all for the conference with illustrious speakers, the likes of Dr. Carl Johann Kalaman, who is the foremost authority on the Mayan calendar, everyone from Mike Barra to Sean David Morton of Coast to Coast fame as their guest, with all these other great keynote speakers. And as we were standing on the lawn, watching the eclipse with our eclipse glasses, so we're all watching, I hold my arm up to aim it at the event. And I look, and I happen to look at the pictures afterwards, and there on the pictures, not lens flare, was another body, another sphere, another object, absolutely round, but smaller than our own sun. Now, mind you, the moon was passing in front of the sun, so through the 3D glasses you could see the effect of the moon. But with the camera picture, and my phone was a good phone that took it clearly, without lens flare, you could see, as I took several pictures, you could see the moon even was showing a portion taken out by the eclipse herself on the second sphere that was next to the sun. Now, earlier that morning, I had noticed that this was a second hit. The day before it had hit, there were 4 chemtrails. I thought, what are they trying to obscure? But it was so uncustomarily warm in Mount Shasta that day that it was approximately some 80-some degrees, even though there was still snow on the mountain. And so we looked past that mountain. We saw this eclipse feature right by the resort. So it's interesting. As I'm standing there, I'm looking, and I realize it is surrounded by red dust. Again, a colleague of my own pointed again that Nibiru with the red dust surrounding. I checked and looked and confirmed this is exactly that planet. Nibiru, Hercolibus, Wormwood, Planet X, the brown dwarf star, several names it's had throughout history, discovered in 1960. And it was on the front of Popular Science magazine on their cover. And then it just went and disappeared from the media. This planet enters our orbit every 3,600 years, and we can always see through our history that there is always a great Earth cataclysm at the time or the same time of this orbit. And this planet, Nibiru, or whatever name you prefer to call it, is actually 5 to 6 times the size of the Earth herself. Has a greater, more dense gravitational pull, especially the way the Earth's gravitation has receded over the last 5 to 7 years appreciably. And its orbit absolutely comes underneath, their North Pole comes underneath our South Pole in a narrow orbit around us. And literally that North Pole magnetism from that planet Nibiru is so strong that it pulls our South Pole up, which is odd after finding this detail after May 2012 this year, because that is exactly confirming what I was shown by the guides in the previous waking dream about Antarctica being moved and Cape Town being the new Antarctica with frozen tundra. These are confirmed issues by that way, metaphysically or spiritually, and we can see now that the earthquakes around the world have been exponentially expanding. Instead of one big one a week, we have them in the scale of 6 and high 7s, and larger, 9 in a week as of November 2012. With all this array of activity, not only with volcanic activity spewing at some 28 some in the erupting zone and the unrest zone at this time. So she herself is making this natural pattern of change, and we on the earth shouldn't stand on the driveway in the frozen rain, which I use in an analogy. We should be able to come in and be safe, but you must learn how to properly prepare, because in your homes on the surface, you will not be safe. I am also preparing safe communities, so if you want more information about that, you can go to my website at inthesecretgarden.com, and you can write me for more information at info@inthesecretgarden.com, or listen to my radio program. It is an award-winning show that reaches over 200,000 listeners worldwide per week on 8 hours out of the week, Wednesdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Pacific, as well as Saturday and Sunday 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific at indie100.com. Thank you.